I actually did it 2 months ago. I interviewed him
Okay. So where do you live? Where are you from?
in Santa Barbara County.
Now, since I've got a website up, I ship books to Germany, France,
What's your website?
Australia, www.johnnygosh.com. And people are finding the book there and placing orders. So I am shipping to a lot of other countries, which surprises me. Our world is getting smaller because of the internet.
This is William Wagener. We're here with Noreen Gosch in Des Moines, Iowa. Noreen, encapsulate to me again. You were married, you lived in a nice cul-de-sac on 45th Street at 1004 45th in Des Moines. That's a very affluent, upscale neighborhood. When did your life fall apart? What was the date Johnny was kidnapped?
Johnny was kidnapped on September 5th, 1982. He set out to deliver his Sunday morning newspapers, got as far as the corner, which was a block away, and a man stopped him asking for directions. The man had pulled his car over to the curb, and this was witnessed by other boys that were at the paper drop, and that's where all the paper boys pick up their papers. And my son didn't stop to talk to the man. He kept on walking towards the corner. The man then made a U-turn in the middle of the street, came back and parked his car right where the boys were folding papers, and
That was at the corner of Marquardt
and Ashworth.
and Ashworth.
And the man shut off the engine of his car and started talking to the boys. And Johnny said to the other kid that was there, who was 16 years old, he said, there's something weird about this guy. I'm scared. I'm going to go home. And there was another gentleman there who was he was a 44-year-old attorney at the time. He's now a judge in Des Moines. And he was there picking up his son's papers. So he also witnessed this man talking to the boys and had a fairly good description of the car.
The judge did. What was this judge's name?
The judge's name is...
Sorry, so a judge witnessed the kidnapping?
He witnessed the man talking to
Johnny.
Then he put his son's papers in the car, and he left the area. My son started walking down the street. He had his bundles of papers in the wagon, and our little dog was with him, and Johnny started walking down the street away from the corner towards 42nd and Marquardt.
Right.
He went around the corner, but just before he went around the corner, the boy that was left back on the corner said that he heard our little dog growl, and he looked up and there was a very tall man following Johnny. He estimated him to be about 6'7". And I doubt very much that Johnny even knew he was being followed because the man stayed back a ways. At that point, after Johnny disappeared out of sight and went around the corner, the man did too. The next thing that the witness on the corner heard was the slamming of a car door and the screech of tires. And he saw that very same vehicle that had been at the other corner a few minutes earlier run the stop sign and turn left, which would be north, and head out of town or towards the interstate. The one thing that the man did before he left the corner, after Johnny walked away saying that he was frightened, before the man started up the engine and pulled away, later to end up on the other street, he reached up and he flicked the dome light of his car 3 times, as if to signal somebody. And the witness was very, very good. He was able to remember all of that.
This took place at what time in the morning on Sunday?
It took place, Johnny left our house at 5 minutes to 6, and he was kidnapped and gone by 6:11. So it was a total of 16 minutes from the time he left home. So they were very synchronized. They knew what they were doing. According to the evidence that we have gained since that time, we know that they had a photograph of Johnny in that car, and the man knew who he was coming after. It was a very organized kidnapping.
So these kidnappers were shopping for Johnny.
Correct.
It wasn't a random pick of any kid on the street. They wanted Johnny GOSCH.
They did. And we learned after the kidnapping that 2 weeks prior, when Johnny was on his way home from school, a neighbor saw a car with California plates on it pull up, and a man leaned out and had a very long telephoto lens and kept clicking pictures of Johnny as he walked home from school. That woman called the police department to report the incident with the license number, and the police said, well, it's not against the law to take pictures of anything. So the police threw away the information and the license number, and so did the woman. And then 2 weeks later, my son was taken. So we knew by the evidence that rolled in after the kidnapping and after this hit the news, we were able to start putting pieces together that this was not random at all. They were after Johnny. They had the photograph of him, and the rest is history. Sentence ever given to a first-time offender in the history of the United States.
They were
For that
sending a
crime.
message.
Of course.
The judge that sentenced her,
Mm-hmm.
had anybody ever told you he'd been part of the sex rings?
But who had?
The judge that sentenced Owens, he'd been part of the
Oh,
sex
I
ring.
don't know if he was or not.
No one's ever told you that.
I don't know. I don't know who the judge was in that case.
Have you ever heard of a man
Alicia.
named Alex? Okay.
But it wouldn't surprise me because they had a very tight-knit group. And many of the VIPs, as you might call them, business people and political figures in the Omaha area were part of this whole sex ring. They were all enjoying the activities with those children. And
Do you think most America can believe that Des Moines chief of police, the Omaha chief of police, judges sitting on court benches, state senators, people higher than state senators, people high in the FBI, people in the Justice Department could be part of a
something,
child slave sex ring?
it's,
I mean, do you think most Americans
no,
can believe
most
that?
Americans wouldn't believe it. And prior to this happening to us and spending all the money I've had to have investigators bring me the facts, I probably wouldn't have believed it either. Because it is pretty out there. To think that these men that we elect, that we trust, that we expect to do the right thing would be involved in this. But there's one thing that I do know. A top surgeon in the Quad City area, right after my book came out in the year 2000, I was down there doing a book signing promotion, and I was on all the radio stations. And when I went to the radio station that morning for my interview, the announcer said, "Did you hear what happened here last week?" And I said, "No." One of their top surgeons, a man you would go to and put your life in his hands on an operating table, had lured a little 13-year-old girl to a motel room in Chicago for sex on the internet.